Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today I'm going to give you guys some recommendations for the Battle of the Girl Bands prompts. As you know from my TBR video on Saturday, I am a co-host of the Battle of the Girl Bands, and I am super excited about this readathon. And so I have been diving into some of the prompts from the other teams, and I was going to do a recommendation video. And I originally was just going to do it for my own team, but I thought then I'm going to be giving everyone information about the Spice Girls team and what books they can use to steal from me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to make a video on what you can steal from all the teams. And these are mostly books that I have read and can recommend to you. There are a few on here that I have read and hated, and there are a couple, and I will mention when I get to those. There are a couple as well that I have not read yet, but they're on my TBR. So this is going to be rapid fire. I'm not going to go through the synopsis of all of these because I don't know how many books I have on this list, but it's a lot, and I don't want this to be like a 40-minute video. I might do like a brief genre and then maybe something specific about the book, real short and sweet, not anything crazy. And I will separate in the timestamps down below, I'll separate the teams. So if you're looking for a specific team, you can just jump to that section. I'm going to be looking down at my notebook where my notes are for each of the recommendations. I'm going to do 3 or 4 prompts for each team. I also, if you guys want prompts for Spice Girls specifically, you can check out my February TBR. On my February TBR, I do have some steals that I plan on doing as well, so there are a few other recommendations over there. First, we're going to go through the best team, the Spice Girls team. That's where I'm going to start. If you haven't joined a team yet, join Spice Girls. Spice up your life. That's what I'm saying. Really, you can join any team if you guys are interested in Readathon, Battle of the Bands, or Battle of the Girl Bands. I will post Rainy Blue Reads is the host of the Readathon, but Rainy Blue is also on Team Spice Girls, and so, you know, if you want to be on the actual host team, you're going to choose Spice Girls. The first prompt I'll go into is the horror prompt, and I will give you guys three recommendations for this. These are kind of my top 3 horror books right now: Mary, Nestlings, and The September House. So Mary and Nestlings are both by Nat Cassidy. Nat Cassidy has this amazing way of writing women. It's incredible. Mary is about a pre-menopausal woman who starts having kind of hallucinations and about people's deaths, and those people are actually dying. That's all I'm going to give you. And then Nestlings is follows a woman who has just had a baby, who had a very horrible labor and has been paralyzed, ends up getting an apartment complex, getting an apartment in an apartment complex that's not quite what she seems, or what it seems, I should say. And then The September House, you follow an older protagonist who buys the house of her dreams, and it is haunted, and she doesn't want to leave. They're all fantastic. I am very new to the horror genre, and so I definitely cannot say that these are my deep dives in horror, but I enjoyed all of them. Next to the prompt that has a book title that starts with S, I have Small Favors, Spice Road, Solito, Soulless, or Sisters of the Lost Nation, or Stay Awake. I have a lot. Small Favors is a YA horror. It's very atmospheric. It's about an isolated village where some people who originally go out to get supplies for the village don't come back, and there are some things that are happening around the village that are a little weird. I don't remember a ton about this. I read this last year, and it wasn't my favorite. I rated this 3 stars, but it is a very atmospheric read, and if you like YA horror, I do think that Erin Craig does write good YA horror. And then I have Spice Road. Spice Road is a YA fantasy. I didn't realize I put 2 YAs in here. I think it's YA. I'm pretty sure it's YA. And you follow a realm that has tea magic, and one character in particular is your main protagonist. Your main character is a girl who has become a warrior of this town. They kind of live in a desert area, and there are monsters that come into their town, so they have warriors that protect the town itself. And her brother is kind of known as a traitor, and so you spend the book trying to figure out whether or not her brother actually is a traitor, where her brother is, because he's missing, and I thought it was fantastic. Next, we have Solito, which is a nonfiction that follows the journey of a young boy, I believe he's 9, who ends up migrating from El Salvador, I think, is where he's originally from. If not, I'll correct it up on the screen. But he migrates from El Salvador to the United States and his journey getting here by himself. Soulless is the start of a series. It is the Parasol Protectorate, if you guys have heard me talk about that. It is steampunk fantasy. You follow Alexia Terabati, who is a preternatural. She literally can take away supernatural powers by touching someone. As soon as she takes her hand away, they become supernatural again. But she's very sassy. She gets in a lot of trouble, and she is definitely not your typical Victorian housewife, which is what people kind of want her to be. Sisters of the Lost Nation is a horror novel, and it follows two indigenous young women who live on a reservation. One of them goes missing. They are sisters. One of them goes missing, and one of the other sisters trying to find her, and it follows two timelines. You're following one where the sister's trying to find the other, and the timeline that led up to the other sister's disappearance. And then the last one, Stay Awake, is a thriller where a woman cannot remember. Anytime she falls asleep, she will forget everything that's happened, and so she keeps writing herself messages on her hand about what's happened. She knows that there's been a death. There's been kind of crazy circumstances around her, but she doesn't remember. And the last one for Team Spice Girls is books that have either Say, Forever, Stop, or Life in the title. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, A Quiet Life in the Country. So Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, you follow a girl who, I think it was in the 1600s, decides, she essentially makes a deal with a god of some sort, a dark god, that she can live forever, but the deal is that nobody will remember her. And so you follow her life not being remembered. I love this book. I reread it in December, and it is still, without a doubt, one of my favorite books. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I did not enjoy this book. I know a lot of people read it last month with TBR-a-thon. It is a romance, so if you guys are into romance, I would check this out. It was just not for me. And then A Quiet Life in the Country. I have not read this, but it's on my TBR, and this book is, I think, cozy mystery, if I remember correctly. The cover just looks fantastic. Next are the prompts for the Cheetah Girls. One of the prompts was an animal on the cover, and this could be Hunt the Stars, Shadow of the Gods, or The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. I'm sure that there are a ton of other ones, but those are the three that I'm mentioning. Hunt the Stars is space opera / romance about a female bounty hunter who is hunting for something for a different race of individuals that humans have kind of been at odds with, and her and her crew kind of get into some bad circumstances, and you follow some love stories along the ship. Shadow of the Gods is the first book in the Bloodsworn saga, and this is a Nordic fantasy where you are following multiple POVs in this massive world where you have these gods who have died in the past, and they are like a dragon god, a wolf god, and they're all like these massive creatures. You can tell on the cover what at least one of the creatures is. I think the first one is a dragon, maybe. And the bones of these creatures do still have some remnants of power, and so people fight over the bones. There are also people in the world who have the blood of the gods in them, and so there's some politics behind how those people are treated and what that actually does to them to have some of that blood in them. It's such a massive series. I can really not give a short synopsis, but it's amazing. If you want a chunky epic fantasy, this is a series for you. And then lastly, The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. If you are interested in a pirate story, an older female pirate has retired but is asked to come back into the field. She decides to go on one last adventure. That is Amina al-Sarafi, and it is just glorious. Next, books that start with a C. This I have Chilling Effect, City of Nightmares, and Catherine House. So Chilling Effect is a sci-fi that I just read about psychic cats and a crew that are they're kind of bounty hunters. They're more like contract workers, and the captain of the crew gets herself into a little bit of a pickle with a very important alien, and it leads to some odd shenanigans in the universe. This is not my absolute favorite read. It was a fun time. I rated this 3.75. But if you're looking for a lighthearted space opera-y with psychic cats, check this out. City of Nightmares was another one I rated a 3 last year, but it is a YA horror where you follow a girl who lives in a society where if people fall asleep and they have nightmares, they actually can become a nightmare. So there are people who are turning into like dinosaurs and big giant spiders that eat people, and she has to figure out how to live in this world. Like I said, I rated it a 3. I thought that it could have had a lot better atmosphere. It is the beginning of a series, and so it might get better. I did like the characters and the city itself. The idea of people having to deal with potentially waking up as nightmares and having to take something to prevent essentially dreams was a really interesting concept. And last on this list, Catherine House. This was a 5-star read for me, and this will not be for everybody. If you do not like ambiguous endings, please do not read this because you will not enjoy Catherine House. But you follow a main character who gets accepted into Catherine House, which is a very prestigious institution that they will pay for your room and board and give you free education, but the caveat is that you have to give up 3 years of your life. You are not allowed to leave Catherine House, and you are not allowed to contact the outside world during those 3 years. Next was the prompt that you have to have a book with a title, or a word in the title that is step, girl, party, or together. And for this, I have The Girl Who Drank the Moon, The Girl with All the Gifts, or The Search Party. So The Girl Who Drank the Moon is a middle grade book about a witch in the woods who essentially finds these babies that have been abandoned in the woods, and she takes it upon herself to find adopted families for these babies. One of them she accidentally gives moonlight, I believe, and the moonlight empowers the girl, and so she ends up raising the girl in the woods with herself. It is super sweet. Loved it. 5 stars for me. The next one was The Girl with All the Gifts, which is a dystopian society where you follow these children that have some abilities and they're being studied, and they're in a dystopian society where I don't know how much to give away. There's some bad things that exist, and there's a reason that the scientists are studying these children, and you learn why. And the last one, The Search Party. This is one that's on my TBR. I have not read this yet. It came out in January of this year, and it is about glamping, and it's a thriller. So that's all I really know. I'm excited about it whenever I can get to it. Next, we're going to move on to Destiny's Child prompts. The first one was a book that has a name in the title, and so I will mention Mary, which I've already talked about in this video, in the Spice Girls horror prompt, and then Edna Fisher. So the Remarkable Retirement of Edna Fisher is one that I just read in January and thought it was a lot of fun. It's about an 83-year-old woman who gets selected as the chosen one in a fantasy realm. She has to figure out how to fight dragons and carry a sword, and she's never done any of that in her entire life. It's a hoot. Check it out if you're looking for kind of a cozy, quirky fantasy. The next prompt was involving royalty. So for this, I picked The Goblin Emperor and then Engines of Empire. So The Goblin Emperor, you were literally following an emperor. You're following a half-goblin child who was not intended for the throne, but everyone above him dies. He has to take over the throne, having never been trained to do so, and try and figure out who potentially murdered his family. Engines of Empire, you follow a set of nobles. So maybe this doesn't count, but I consider, I guess, nobles royalty, and so that's why I threw this recommendation in there. You follow a family of nobles in a massive empire that is potentially maybe at war with a couple other places or on the edge of war, and you have to figure out how the empire works and who are the people who are in charge, if not the nobles that you're following. Next, books that have the title that start with D, I have Dead 11, Dead Silence, Driftwood, Daughter of the Pirate King, and Death and the Conjurer. So 5 options for you guys to choose from. Dead 11, you follow a woman and her brother. The woman goes missing after searching for her dead son, and the brother is searching for his sister who went searching for her dead son. And they end up on an island that is kind of stuck in the 1990s. There's definitely something going on with the creepy horror vibes. And you follow dual timelines, one with her searching for her son and then the other with the brother searching for his sister. And yeah, you had to figure out what happens. Dead Silence is a sci-fi horror where you follow, it's essentially Titanic in space. That's what I'll say that book is. Next is Driftwood, which is a book I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and it's one that I want to reread. I originally, when I read this, gave this 3 stars, but it has lived in my brain for a couple of years now, and so I really would like to reread it and just see if I feel the same way. It is about essentially a universe in which worlds go to die. So as your world is getting closer and closer to apocalyptic things, it can go into the drift, and it's essentially a universe where all of these worlds collide into this massive ball of decaying world. And so you have all these different societies that have been in their worlds at one point in time that are now having to figure out how to live together. And yeah, it was really interesting concept. I think I had different expectations going into it whenever I originally read it. And so, like I said, I'd like to reread it. Daughter of the Pirate King is a YA fantasy book following the daughter of a pirate king. She specifically gets herself kidnapped by another pirate crew to try and find something on their ship. And then the last one, Death and the Conjurer, is a Joseph Spector book. Joseph Spector is kind of an eccentric illusionist who helps detectives solve locked door murders. The last one for Destiny's Child is to pick a book with good, survivor, woman, or name in the title. So for this, I said For Your Own Good, Invisible Women, The Name of the Wind, A House with Good Bones, or When Women Were Dragons. So any of those books would work for this prompt. For Your Own Good was a book I rated 2 stars. I did not like this, but if you like Samantha Downing, this might be something that you're interested in. It's about a teacher who essentially is a horrible person and potentially killing his own students. Invisible Women is a nonfiction book that follows the different ways in which women historically have not been involved in decision making that has affected society. So things like the safety mechanisms in cars or medicine, things like that. The Name of the Wind is an epic fantasy by Patrick Rothfuss, and you follow Quoth, who is, it's essentially you follow his life story, but there are 2 timelines that are happening within this, and you follow his journey into becoming this epic warrior and epic figure and legendary figure in life that everyone knows about. So you're trying to figure out how he got to that point. A House with Good Bones is a horror novel which follows a woman who is trying to figure out why her mother has suddenly become a little terrified of her own house. So she comes back home, the house is completely changed, and yeah, her mom just seems absolutely scared out of her mind and she doesn't know why, so she has to figure out what's going on. When Women Were Dragons follows 2 young girls, I believe. It's been a minute since I've read this. And they're in our society, but they're in our society where in the 1950s there was an event called the Dragoning, where a whole bunch of women essentially turned into dragons. This book follows these 2 young girls in this environment where the women in their lives have either become dragons and are no longer in their lives, or have chosen to stay behind and not become dragons, and what that means society-wise, and what it means for their family and for them. Lastly, we have TLC, and so the first prompt for them was a romance book. I don't read a lot of romance, but one that I've enjoyed recently is The Hanging City, which is about a troll city that is under a bridge, and how, first off, how they got there, how humans interact with them. There is a human person, a human woman that you follow, and her journey into getting to that troll city and trying to survive in that troll city. Next, we have The Dead Romantics, which follows, I don't know how much to give you about this. It's paranormal romance. You follow a girl whose father passes away, and so she's also dealing with grief throughout this process. Her and her father shared this ability to see ghosts. Next, we have a book that starts with T, and so for this I have Thornhedge, The Trader Borrow Cormorant, They Call Us Enemy, and Theft of Swords, and Tress. I have lots of ones for this. So Thornhedge is my co-host favorite pick. So if you want to do the co-host favorites read and get 50 points for your team, you can read Thornhedge, which follows Toadling, who is a fae-like creature who is guarding a tower, and you don't know why. The Trader Borrow Cormorant is a book that follows Baru, whose town gets infiltrated by a much larger, vast empire, and her family is, in a way, kind of destroyed because of it, and so she decides to take them down from the inside. They Call Us Enemy is a nonfiction book by George Takei, and it follows his journey and his family's journey in being forced into a Japanese internment camp. Next is The Theft of Swords. In The Theft of Swords, you follow Hadrian and Royce, who have been asked to steal something that they don't believe is of importance, but ends up getting them into a little bit of a pickle, and they get involved in some kingdom politics and get a little bit deeper than they wanted to. And lastly, you have Tress of the Emerald Sea, which follows Tress, who is a young girl who's very satisfied with her life, but circumstances end up pushing her to go on a pirating adventure that she doesn't really know if she wants to go on. And the last prompt for this team and this video is a book that has either no, bad, this, or creep in the title. And so for this, I have When No One Is Watching, Bad Ones, This Delicious Death, This Savage Song, or This Vicious Grace. When No One Is Watching, I honestly don't remember what this book was about. It was not a book that I enjoyed. I rated it a 1 star, but I wanted to put it on here because I couldn't find very many books with the word no in it. And so when I found one that I had read, I went ahead and put it on this list. But I believe it's a mystery thriller. Like I said, I can't remember what the specific synopsis is about. It's not a book I enjoyed, but it would meet this prompt. Bad Ones is a new release, and it actually comes out in February. And I have no idea what this is. This is definitely a cover TBR book for me. I put it on, I know it's horror, that's all I know. And the cover reminds me of the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who, which is another reason it got put on my TBR. This Savage Song is a book by V.E. Schwab, who, it's a book, it's a YA fantasy book, and it incorporates music into this world of monsters. And so the city is used to living with monsters. There are different levels of monsters. There's a hierarchy, and you have 2 sides of the city that are kind of at war as well. It was a really fun YA fantasy book. And the last 2, This Delicious Death and This Vicious Grace, are books I honestly have no idea about. They're on my TBR, and I kind of don't want to read their synopsis because, once again, these are other books that I put on my TBR for their covers. This Delicious Death reminds me of there's a show about a woman who like becomes a zombie and starts eating people. That's what this cover reminds me of. I can't remember what it is. It has Drew Barrymore in it. Santa, oh whatever. But so anyway, these are books that would meet the prompt. I'm not exactly sure what genre they are, but they would also meet this prompt. So hopefully that gigantic list of books helps you guys find something that you're interested in for the readathon if you guys do choose to participate. If you're not participating in the readathon, hopefully one of the books sounded interesting to you and maybe you'll pick it up in February anyway. Let me know in the comments if you guys are planning on participating in the readathon, and if you're not, do you have any other readathon plans in February? Are you just going to be mood reading? What do you have in mind for the month of February? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.